Friends, first of all, I must congratulate Sagarva Bharath Foundation, all of you, all 9 of you. The fact that you are at your young age deeply interested in what's happening in society and the country, going well beyond your personal circumstances itself is a great victory. All of you are winners. All of you are potential leaders, because what is leadership? It's about looking for the collective, not merely taking care of yourself. You must take care of yourself and your family, but how do you fulfill the collective needs of the community? How do you bring people together, as many of you have said, across caste, region, religion, and language? And how do you prioritize? How do you use limited resources for the larger public good? How do you reconcile differences harmoniously? And how do you promote sensible policies that generate the best outcomes? You're all thinking on these lines. I'm really proud of you. I congratulate you. I thought the best way is there are some recurrent themes in your presentations, each of you. I will pick up one or two, and I'm sure Ms. Kaumudi has a lot more to say. I'll leave it to her then. On many issues, you are right, but no, some things are said repeatedly in the country. We believe them as absolute truths. You're all bright young people, very thoughtful people. I would like you to look at these things much more carefully. One thing said by many of you is, India is very rich in resources. Not true. We have only 2.5% of the world's land mass, with about 17% of the world's population, about 18% of the world's population. In minerals, we are very poor in non-ferrous minerals. Iron and other iron-like minerals, we are very, very rich. But all other minerals, we are actually poor compared to the rest of the world. Oil and gas, we hardly have anything. I can go on and on. When we talk about these issues, we must be factually accurate, and we must understand the reality of the situation. But the good fortune is we live in an age when the physical resources are less and less important. They're important, but not as important as they were, say, 100 years ago. Today, because your brain power, how do you harness the resources and add value? That is more important than how many physical resources you have. That's why if you notice world over, the commodities, whether agricultural products or minerals, if you take a long-term trajectory, their price is globally coming down at fixed prices. Whereas where human intellect, innovation, they are required, their price is going up. Services, their value is going up wherever they add value. But the fact is, we are not very strong in resources. The second thing I want you to look at very carefully, almost everybody, every one of you mentioned population is a huge problem. Undoubtedly, it's a huge problem because after all, if you have only 2.5% of the land mass, but we have about 18% of the population of the world, obviously we have a huge problem. But there are two aspects to this I want you to all understand carefully. One, it's already there. We can only think of what to do now to contain population. What is there cannot be reversed. You cannot make 140 crores. Today we have 139 crores population. We cannot make 139 crores into, let's say, 50 crores because you give an order today. It's there. So how do you maximize the value? Quite a few of you, I'm very happy to note, you focused a great deal on quality of education. If actually we make our people productive members of society through quality education, not merely degrees and certificates, but genuine quality education and quality healthcare without any burden on the families, financial burden on the families, or the government school, private school, doesn't matter what it is, but the government must take care. And it's possible. There's no time to go into details, but it's possible to do both these things with our resources. Then population actually is an asset. And a productive population with incomes also generates demand for goods and services. Therefore, they also promote economic growth. But an underutilized population, the population whose brains are not utilized, as you all said very rightly, is the greatest sin in the world. Unfulfilled potential is the greatest sin. Because God or nature gave us a lot of potential, a lot of ability. But we as a society have not done enough to fulfill that potential, to bring out that ability, to make us productive human beings. That is a tragedy. And India has the largest number of people with unfulfilled potential. The second part of population is, happily, we see the end of the tunnel. When we were kids of your age, we were terrified of population growth. It was a monstrous thing. But today, those of you who are not familiar, I want you to realize, in most parts of India, take Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, Kerala, Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Goa, Maharashtra, Gujarat, Delhi, Punjab, even Orissa, a poor state, most parts of India, population has already come down to what is called subsistence level or stabilization level. Without going into details, if a mother during her reproductive lifetime gives birth to 2.1 children on average, obviously each mother cannot give birth to 2.1, but average I'm talking about. Then after some time, the population will remain constant, stable. In all these states I mentioned, including Jammu and Kashmir, the population, the fertility rates, the number of children born to a mother during a reproductive cycle is fewer than 2.1. Many states 1.6, 1.7, 1.8. That means after some years, population actually will decline in these states. The other states, notably Bihar and UP and a few other states, it is still about 2.1. But the good news is, in every part of India, it is declining. In every group, Hindu, Muslim, rich, poor, upper caste, lower caste, in every group, it is declining. So it's only a matter of time. Some states or some groups are a little behind the other groups. But the trajectory is right. Somebody said 160 crores, 1.6 billion. You're right. That is where we will peak. In the next 20, 30 years, India will reach about 160 crores. Then it will stabilize there and slowly start falling. So population is an issue. It is already there. We have to deal with that. But luckily, the future is now secured and population, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. I want you to understand that. The third one, many of you focused on education. Some of you with great understanding and insights. I'm proud of you. It is incredibly important. If there's one area where India has done poorly, terribly poorly, it is education and healthcare. But it's not so much because we're not spending money. Some of you said a lot more money needs to be spent. Of course, yes, more money is welcome. But the real problem of education is not money. We are spending now 4.3% of GDP on education in the country. Now, 4.3% of GDP is a little less than what many rich countries spend. They spend about typically 6%. But remember, the bulk of the kids in India go to private schools and private colleges. Even poor parents are spending money disproportionate to their income, out of pocket, to give their children a head start. And the 4.3% the government is spending is mostly for government schools and government colleges alone, where only 50% of the kids are going. So it's not more money. You take Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, on an average for a school child, 85,000 rupees is being spent per year at school level by the government. It's a lot of money. More need not be spent. The money we are spending, we must make it get results, not merely passes and certificates, but ability, outcomes. The person must be productive, capable of dealing with the world as a good citizen, as a good producer, as a good thinker, as a good human being. We are failing spectacularly. There are ways of doing it because the demand is very strong. Government is spending money. The society cares. Parents are sacrificing a great deal for their children's future. So we only have a few things to be set right. Some of you, one of you at least mentioned that. We have a very soulless examination. Mugging, rote learning, mass copying, and inflated grades, 99%, 98%, high cutoff marks, all this is rubbish, most of it. We must have education which is meaningful. Education which actually brings out our abilities. That means understanding the concepts, not mugging up, applying the concepts for real problem solving in mathematics or anything, ability to arrive at reasonable conclusions from given data, that is science and logic, and ability to communicate clearly and effectively. Some of you spoke so beautifully. So, ability to communicate lucidly, clearly. Your ideas, you must communicate, you must understand the other person's ideas. If you judge by the standard, our education is horribly bad. We are among the worst in the world. Worst in the world. But we can do a lot to improve. The education policy that came out last year is a sound policy. But a policy is only as good as it is actually applied. All of us, the students, the teachers, the parents, the society at large, the managements, the state governments, the union government, private managements, all of us together must work to make education much better. And we can make it much better in a short time because, as I said, the demand side is very, very strong. I don't want to take too much time. I only wanted to give you a flavor of some of the things that you're all agitated about, to think deeply, to be a part of the solution. But let me finally say, leadership is not about the position you occupy. Just because you happen to be a collector of a district, or a minister, or a chief minister, or a prime minister, or MP, or MLA, that doesn't mean you're a leader. Leadership is much more than that. It's not about a position. It's about bringing harmony, as somebody said. It's about making us think collectively, look at the long-term goals. If necessary, make the short-term sacrifices. It's looking at the collective. Even as individual dignity, individual freedom are respected and valued, it is establishing the link between my life and the society. There is a give and take in society. If each of us behaves irresponsibly, recklessly, without thinking of the future, we all destroy each other. Leadership is about reconciling the limited resources with unlimited wants. Somebody said, limited resources we have. There are unlimited goals. Any country, any family, however rich you are, you have so many dreams. Leadership is about reconciling these two. Leadership is about reconciling the differences and ideas and viewpoints and backgrounds and philosophies and thinking, and making all of us look at some things together, work together, have the same dream, same goal, work in concept, not at cross purposes. Leadership is about looking at the long term, not merely focusing on now, this moment. Short term is required. We have to survive today. No doubt about it. But our survival today should not be at the cost of tomorrow, because if we take away everything, your generation will suffer. Many political parties, for the sake of the vote, they want to give today's freebies, which is necessary on occasion. When you are desperate, you need some help. But if that is at the cost of tomorrow's well-being, your children's well-being, the intergenerational equity is disturbed. That means my generation is taking everything at the cost of your generation. That's not fair. That's what India is about. Any human society is about protecting the future of the children. In India, it's particularly true, because in India, the parents, no matter which caste, which region, which language, which religion you belong to, the parents live for their children. They sacrifice for their children. when they have limited money or limited food or whatever, they will give up their desires, but they want to fulfill their children's desires. That is the greatness of our culture. In such a culture, for short-term political gains, you cannot mortgage the future of our children. While we must take care of the immediate needs, we must also build a better tomorrow by sacrificing a little bit. Leadership is that inspires us to do that. We've had great leadership in this country, not merely in politics. Don't merely think of politics as leadership. There are good people in politics. Pratap Singh Khairan in Punjab, undivided Punjab, early days of independence. He was the leader who really promoted prosperity in Punjab. Or you take Shanta Kumar or Parmar of Himachal Pradesh, one of the most difficult states, hilly terrain. They produced remarkable results with people's cooperation. Or take somebody like C. Subramaniam, as a union minister with his officials and others. In a few short years, he brought about the Green Revolution in this country. One of the most successful efforts in India's history, post-independence. Take somebody like Bhairav Shekhawat, Rajasthan, one of the most backward states. Within a short span, relatively about 10 years' time or 15 years' time, he and his team brought Rajasthan above that B-moral status, as they used to call. Take Orissa, Naveen Patnaik, one of the most backward states of India, one of the poorest states of India, is now doing well in many respects. Population, I told you. It's a matter of pride that Orissa is now, it's very close to population stabilization. Fertility rate is about 1.6 or so. So I can go on. Jalaga Bengal Rao from the underworld Andhra Pradesh in the 70s, a man with foresight and vision. So I can go on and on. There are many people, but there are many outside politics. Leadership is not the private prerogative of those in politics and power. It's about ideas. It's about influence. It's about thinking. It's about showing us a path. It's about innovation. A man like Dr. Varghese Kurian, he showed what collectives as cooperatives we outside government can accomplish with enlightened self-interest. And as a result, he transformed the lives of millions of farmers, dairy farmers in the country, made India a leader in the dairy sector. Take many other scientists, entrepreneurs, thinkers, philosophers. In every walk of life, we have extraordinary people. The challenge today is, how do you make these extraordinary people, leaders like you, arise? How do you create a condition where their talents are utilized? Not somebody's son or daughter. Not because you have the most money to spend, or you have the muscle power, or you belong to a certain caste, or you have the blessings of some powerful leaders. No, but the people with good heart, good mind, a passion and compassion, a deep commitment to change in the country, and good ideas. They must be allowed to rise through ethical and rational means for our collective sakes. If somebody truly able, public-spirited, rises in leadership in any walk of life, everybody else benefits. We are the beneficiaries. Therefore, we must not be jealous or envious of people whose ideas take them to the top. Actually, we must create a condition where such people rise to the top. You must not look at their caste, region, religion, or background. You must look at what they accomplish. And lastly, leadership, as I said, is not about what position you occupy. It's about what accomplishments you made possible. What were the true achievements in terms of outcomes in transforming lives? That's why we always admire Mahatma Gandhi, and Nelson Mandela, and Abraham Lincoln. Gandhiji never occupied any position of power. He was not a rich man. Mandela suffered 27 years in jail. And after one term, he said, I will no longer continue as president, to give the chance to the other people. Gandhiji was assassinated by his own religionists. Lincoln served as president only for 4 years and 3 months, but in the most crucial time in America. These people are remembered not because of the power they wielded, but because of the influence they had on their societies during their lifetime and subsequently. The inspiration they gave us. the remarkable transformation they were instrumental in bringing about in societies. That is true leadership, not political power. It's about ideas, it's about influence, it's about impact, it's about transformation. You're all brilliant young people. You're deeply committed to this country and our society. You're also looking at the mankind as a whole. I was deeply influenced by what you were saying about environment and many other things. You're thoughtful. I congratulate you. You're all leaders. You're all winners. But I appeal to you, if you want to lead, you have to learn. You have to listen. You have to be very, very rational. Your conclusions must be based on evidence and logic. You must come up with innovative solutions. You must know how to communicate those solutions. Sometimes the road is long and hard. Sometimes things happen very quickly. But not all times do things happen very fast. Sometimes people take time to embrace even sensible, obvious ideas. But you must persevere because the stakes are worth it. Lives of millions of people, their future depend on the kind of leadership that we provide today in various walks of life. I'm sure all of you will have fulfilled lives. Take care of your personal lives with dignity, with honesty, and take care of the collective good. They must go together. One cannot be at the cost of the other. If you ignore personal lives completely, you will not have the stamina, the ability to actually do service to humanity, to the collective. Both go together. Let me repeat, one is not at the cost of the other. I'm sure you'll have very fulfilled, happy personal lives, and you will have an incredibly important leadership role to play to make a difference to people all around you in every walk of life. Good luck to you.
Sir, I'm your follower, sir. I watch your videos on YouTube, and tonight I have watched the video of yours, sir. Google, you have given your speech on Google for 1.5 hours, sir. So I have a question, sir. We also have Madhav Reddy, sir, from Zero Budget Politics here, our messenger. And how we can, my question is, sir, how we can bring this zero budget politics from ground level to the permanent level? What are your views on zero budget politics, sir?
I will very briefly go into that because these are very complex subjects. You're asking essay questions. You know, every democracy has an evolution. Just because you have a beautiful constitution and you have the right to vote and the right to shout and protest, it doesn't mean that overnight it will become a great democracy. The great democracies, successful and mature democracies, took hundreds of years. Our problem is, while we have done well in some respects, we don't have the luxury of hundreds of years. Because the world is developing economically with extraordinary, breathless rapidity. During Industrial Revolution between 1760 and 1840, we call it a revolution, but you know, the growth rate in Britain at the time was 1 to 2%. It was still a revolution because in a stagnant agrarian economy for thousands of years, you have an industrial economy which is actually generating growth irrespective of the weather, which was a miracle. Today, if a government gives us 2% growth rate, next day we'll throw them in the dustbin of history. Even 5-6% is poor for a country like ours. There is very rapid economic growth and much more rapid technological transformation. So the problem of India is, how do you accelerate the democratic evolution? How do you make our democracy work better? We don't have the luxury of hundreds of years like Britain and America had. There we floundered. Actually, we made things worse. But there's no reason to despair. The reason why there is so much of expenditure, when I say zero budget, what you mean is ethical politics, no illegitimate money, no vote buying. Vote buying is obviously a most visible and extremely dangerous and sad manifestation. There's a by-election going on now in Telangana and in Huzurabad. Each of the candidates for an assembly constituency, the major candidates, they're expected to spend about 40 to 50 crores at least. Ridiculous. Anywhere in the world, it's ridiculous. Vote buying. Then, not only that, the freebies. The political parties are recklessly offering everything free. Poor people need help, but without doing what the government has to do to make our lives better. good infrastructure, rule of law, education of quality, healthcare of quality, etc. If you merely give short-term swaps, it gives you some relief from suffering today. It doesn't make your life better tomorrow. Poverty is perpetuated. It's a disaster. Most governments in India are falling prey to that. And the third, as somebody said, divisions. We're fomenting divisions, caste, region. We're a very complex society, diverse society. So to get the vote, it's easy to fashion vote banks through mobilizing people on basis of caste, religion, region, etc., making hate the other groups. There are reasons why these are happening. Political parties are not terrible creatures. They simply want power at any cost. If it's possible to get power through good means, they will do that. If they feel it's necessary to get power through bad means, they will adopt that also. So it's all about the incentives. There are three big answers to your question. As I said, there's no time to go into detail. They're very complex themes. The first is there must be a greater understanding for the people, the link between the vote I give and the consequences that follow. What happens to my life? Not Bharat Mata, not some grand issues, but simple, practical day-to-day issues. Let me give a simple example. I'm now in the fifth floor apartment of mine in this complex. Suppose in the elevator, the lift does not function. I'm not going to keep quiet. I give a monthly maintenance fee, and we all voted for somebody to manage all these affairs. We'll tell them, look, we put you together to take care of all these things. We're paying you monthly maintenance fee for all these things, the lift to be maintained properly, the watch and ward, the parking, then the electricity within the compound, the water supply, etc. And if the lift doesn't function, it's not a theoretical thing. It's not Bharat Mata thing. I know where my money is going. I know what I want for that money. I know whom I have elected. I know why I have elected. What I expect in return. So if he is not good enough, I'll replace him. Or I'll take responsibilities myself. I'll push the system. That happens only when there is great decentralization with accountability. We create a very centralized government system without accountability. The second big answer is rule of law. If those in power, they feel that they're the servants of the people, if they abuse power, they'll be punished for sure. Then they'll be restrained. In India, if you're in power, you're a monarch. You're elected through the vote, but ultimately you elected the Raja of the constituency or the state or the nation. You can do pretty much what you like. The law can do nothing to you. There's no accountability because there's no rule of law. Supposing you're a genuine rule of law, there again, it's a very complex thing in itself. But if you have actually effective rule of law, no matter how high and mighty you are, you can be held to account. Then power as property will be replaced by power as service. In sane societies, the best people very reluctantly join politics. You have to persuade them and pressurize them. In India, even the most third-rate fellow, the moment you give him an opportunity, he jumps at it because he thinks it's a personal virtue. It is a property. Because there's no rule of law, there's no accountability. The police and the law enforcement system, which should control you, is actually controlled by you once you're elected. Then everything else follows. The third thing is electoral system. In our electoral system, what we call the first past the post system, for our conditions, it's a disaster. We simply borrowed it from Britain because they had it. We didn't think through it carefully. There are alternatives where the incentives for the political party and the candidate, they change dramatically. They'll behave differently. They'll put up different kinds of candidates and they will reach out to the people in a different manner, not offering money. That will not help them. So change the electoral system to promote ethical politics. These three are at the heart of it. And of course, all this must go along with people's deeper understanding, better understanding of democracy. Now it's all a jamboree. It's a festival without any purpose, a sense of what is happening. Therefore, each time government changes, but nothing much changes in life. So we are all angry. And again, next election comes. Again, we vote with great fanfare. Again, the same disappointment. Next day onwards, they say, istifa de do. Vote and shout is not democracy. Democracy is much more.
Thank you very much, sir. And I have one more question, sir.
No, we will give a chance to others.
Yes.
Ishratpreet, I think for quite some time he is waiting.
Yeah, Ishratpreet Singh.
Good evening, sir. So, like one of my fellow nominees came up with an idea of including the essence of religious scriptures in school syllabus. But looking at present intolerance of many people to other religions, I'm concerned whether it can be implemented or not. Like, if you think it can be implemented, kindly tell me how can we do so?
Not as religion, Ishratpreet, you're right. But as we have one great advantage as a country. Sometimes we don't recognize our strengths. While I mentioned to you some of our weaknesses, we must be proud of our genuine strengths. There is no country on earth which has so many written languages with their own literature, history, and tradition for hundreds of years, in some cases thousands of years, coexisting as one country. All of us belong to several parts of the country. The mother tongue we learned at home, in many cases, was different. And yet this country is able to live together harmoniously. It's a remarkable triumph of civilization. Sri Lanka, with just 2 languages, Sinhala and Tamil, for 30 years now, there has been tremendous violence and bloodshed. Only now they're slowly recovering. Pakistan, created along with us, broke up largely because of language and culture. The Bengali versus Punjabi language and culture. A country like Belgium, a tiny country, a rich country, they're not able to form a government after election for a year or 2 each time because there is a clash between 2 language groups, the Dutch speaking and the French speaking. I can go on and on. But see the ease with which we all live together. We never make language a big issue. The leadership also must be praised for that. We complain, we criticize them for the failures. But I think our Indian leadership has done a remarkable job in dealing with that diversity of language. Similarly, as a society and as a culture, we embrace all new religions and faiths and ideas and philosophies. If there is one thing great about India, it is this eclecticism, as they call it. Aap Musliman ho ya Sikh ho ya Isai ho ya Hindu ho, the other God also we put a namaste and say no problem. One more God. It's a good thing actually. So without doctrinaire religion, if we simply teach people the evolution of mankind, all of us came from one origin. You, me, others know whether you're tall, short, dark-skinned or light-skinned or Hindu or Muslim or Christian, doesn't matter what we are. We all came from East African Rift Valley. That's where our ancestors started, and they migrated to Asia, to Central Asia, to Europe, and later on through Central Asia and Siberia to Americas. We are all of the same stock. And there is an evolution of philosophy. Religion is merely a part of that. H.G. Wells says, religion is nothing but fetishism. What they tried to establish a causal relationship, and ancient man did not understand the link between what he sees as a phenomenon and the cause he doesn't understand. He invented some causes, some superstitions. Even today, many elderly people in India, whenever there's a thunder or lightning, you know what they say? Lord Arjuna's chariot's screw, that nut has fallen on earth. How ridiculous it is. But then actually many people believe that. You ask grandparents of many Hindu families. So religion in essence is about 2 things. One, trying to find ineffectually a relationship between cause and effect. As we understood it better, it became science. The second part is all religions did only one thing. They tried to establish a relationship between the individual and the collective, the society. Whatever with religion, the precepts are basically in a large community, how do you coexist? How do you moderate your behavior? To that extent, if you make people understand without going to doctrinal differences and who is superior, who is inferior, the stupidity, I think it's a good thing. It's our heritage. If you belong to Sikh faith, Guru Nanak is part of our heritage. It does not matter whether I go to Gurudwara or you go to Gurudwara. And this country was home to every single faith from the very beginning. Judaism came here 2,600 years ago, coexisted here without any discrimination or persecution. Christianity came here through St. Thomas within 20 years after Jesus Christ's crucifixion. The Syrian Christians of Kerala and others, they continue to practice their faith peacefully and without any restriction. Islam came here within 2 or 3 decades after Prophet Muhammad's flight from Mecca to Medina through Arab merchants. And by 712, it came to Sindh. And since then, this is the only country where Islam and other religions could coexist on a large scale. And of course, indigenously, Sikh religion, your faith, or Buddhism, Jainism, various sects of Hinduism, they all rose in this country. So in that way, our society, even without great education, is intuitively capable of grasping all these, that all these are truths, various facets of truth. If that sense is communicated, I have no quarrel. But if you try to impart the sense of superiority, who is better, that's a very dangerous thing. So I understand your concern, but shutting away the reality also is not a good way, because then bad ideas can enter their minds later on. It's better that they actually get a good sense of what it is all about. But most of all, that we all come from the same stock. And not only India, Pakistan. Why is Pakistan our Dushman? Tell me. Politically, there may be differences. That will be sorted out eventually. But how is a person from Pakistan your enemy and my enemy? Tell me. I'm sure if you come from Punjab, there are your relations over there who grew up in Pakistan, Rajendra, Pakistan.
Yes, sir.
How are your enemies just because somebody drew a line? China, how is your enemy? So we must not confuse between temporary national interests and political differences with hatred of people and hatred of civilizations. We must rise above that. Our nationalism must be all-encompassing, not dividing. So that kind of teaching, I'm all in favor.
Yeah, right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, the final words we can say.
Suresh,
And
I'll just conclude briefly.
yeah, please.
First of all, I want all the young people to realize there are so many problems and challenges facing us, but
Yes.
you are remarkably fortunate. We live in the best of all possible worlds, in the best of all possible ages. I'm saying it with all the strength at my command. Because humankind today has enough resources, technology, and experience to be able to solve every single major problem confronting us today. From poverty and unemployment to global warming. 25 years ago, you could not have said this. But today, except your will and skill and quality leadership, there's nothing, no innovation. The world is on the verge of dramatic transformation as never before. What used to happen in 100 years, 1,000 years is now getting compressed in 5 years, 10 years. Now, those become leaders who actually understand the future and pave the way for it. If you're only looking at the past and reacting to that, you'll not become leaders. Take energy sector. There's going to be such transformation in the next 25 or 30 years that we cannot even contemplate. The fossil fuels will be a thing of the past. Your coal and your oil and gas will be a thing of the past very soon during your lifetimes. Spectacular transformation is taking place. That gives us immense opportunities, also creates new challenges. There's no time to go into detail. Leadership is understanding, anticipating, preparing, adapting, and collectively preparing the society and working towards the change. So be optimistic. Just because some things are not as good as they should be, doesn't mean that they'll always remain that way. I mean, how long did it take for the mobile phones to go around? You guys, you were born recently. You don't even realize, not too long ago, many of us did not have a telephone. In all of India, there were only 7 million telephones. To get a telephone was excruciatingly difficult. It never worked when we got the telephone. The bills were very high. Today you have a billion telephones. We have as good a service as anywhere in the world at the lowest cost in the world. Just to give an example. Modern technology gave us fantastic opportunities to leapfrog, do things much faster and better on a bigger scale. Take advantage of them. A nation that does not do it, a society that does not do it, will continue to flounder. China was nothing, nowhere 30, 40 years ago. China is now in the forefront in almost every sector. It happened in front of my generation's eyes. You're born somewhere in between. It's possible as never before. But if you don't also adapt ourselves to new ways of thinking, that's where Ms. Kaumudi is very right. Take gender stereotypes. Because we just don't think through. Whatever is given to us for generations, we accept it as norm. Like caste, for instance, or gender inequality. These are all stupid notions. They make us unhappy, they make others miserable. You take India, for instance, one of the reasons why India is dramatically low in gender equity is the women's participation in workforce is actually declining in India. The only significant country in the world where in the past 15, 20 years, women's participation in workforce has come down considerably. Even Saudi Arabia is seeing increase. Pakistan is better than us. Bangladesh is much better than us. It need not be that. That means we must adapt to the new conditions. We must forget the gender stereotypes, not only for the society and nation, but for ourselves, for our happiness. So think deeply. Don't indulge in shibboleths and slogans. Arrive at rational conclusions after seeing the evidence and after thinking through carefully. Then learn to communicate effectively and come up with sensible solutions. You will be very effective leaders of the future, but always prepare for the future, not overthink the past. While you must understand the foundations of the past, you must understand the future even better. I wish you all the very best. Good luck.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.